Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business and Bytes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Hansman.
And I'm Emilio Mejia. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'll say this. We're going to say this now, but in real life, this isn't the case. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everyone. This is two things, pre-Christmas and for me, pre-baby. So life will be very different on episode 4 for me, and I'm super excited about that. But today we're excited. We've got some good topics, conversation with our guest, Kevin Hayward. We're going to talk about another data breach because that's what's happening in the world today in our industry. And we're going to talk about some tips you can use to protect your business. And, the Business of Bytes podcast, what we're really about is helping you grow both in the business development area and both in just protecting your business and keeping it safe. So we're excited to bring Kevin Hayward onto the stage. Now, here's what I'll say about Kevin. Maybe I should bring him on so we'll do the math together. So, Kevin, I've known you for, I think it might be more than 10 years now.
I think it's more than 10 years. I was thinking between 10 and 15. So yeah, we'll settle with more than 10.
We'll say like 12 just to split the difference. You've been a good friend of mine for a while. And I think there's even a commercial that says he's not just my insurance agent, but he's my friend. Kevin's been my insurance agent for quite a while, and someone that I trust and just enjoy. Not just having a business relationship with you, but also just talking with you on a regular basis. You also recently got me to play pickleball more because you were talking about it. So that's a whole different topic. What we want to do is, why don't you start out just by introducing yourself? I said, we know you're with State Farm, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your business journey. How did you get to be a State Farm agent? Give us just a short recap of how that came to be.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, John and Emilio. It's fun to be here with you. I have been with State Farm for 16 years, but I've owned my agency for 12. I kind of call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I was with the corporate side of State Farm for 4.5 years, and I really liked that, but things were changing. My job role was changing, and that coupled with the fact that I was very ambitious, but within State Farm, they wanted you to be mobile, willing to move around the country to move up the ranks. I just was like, that's kind of problematic. And so a few people had recommended that I apply to own my own agency. And I said, well, okay, I'll look into that. And next thing I knew, kind of sailed through the process, and State Farm said, would like to offer you this agency in Lacey. I'm like, whoa, I'm still thinking about it, but I accepted it. I say kind of jokingly with State Farm, you can inherit a book of business or you can start from scratch. And I started from scratch. And I think State Farm probably figured they didn't really have a whole lot to lose. But we've been very, very blessed. It's a lot of work for sure, owning and operating a business, but it's a really good gig, and thankful to work with so many great customers, including yourself, John.
I think a lot of people, a lot of us accidentally, or we're not ready, right? Like in my journey, that was one of my things. I was about 26, and I was like, in a couple years, I'm going to go get my master's in business. I'm going to start this once I feel like I have enough IT knowledge to not need to lean on anybody. And then somebody came along and said, hey, you want to be partners? And I was like, let's go. And then I just ended up in the seat. So I hear you.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, same thing happened to me. I mean, I was just in a job I didn't like, and a mutual friend of ours, remember Joey, quit being a pastor and decided to become a rocket engineer. And I was like, well, if he could make that dramatic of a change, why can't I? And so then I started with it as well. So, and it wasn't I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur. It never even crossed my mind. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yeah. So you've had an agency. You said 12 years. Mm-hmm. And that means you had to start from scratch. You had to start with just you being the guy, being feet, growing. And now how many employees do you have?
I believe it's 9.
You have 9 employees.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that, when you look back on today, like from today back, what is the emotion that you think about when you think just where you've come from?
Yeah, I mean, I feel thankful. I feel really thankful that I am where I am today. Again, as I mentioned, I'm very, very blessed. And, I've worked really hard, but I certainly don't deserve all the credit for it. It's also been a grind at times. At one point, I went and I counted up all of the employees that I'd had over I think at that point it was 10 years, and it's a big number. I've got some really good stability on my team now. I've got a group of people that there's been kind of a settling, and I've got a really solid core, but there's been a lot of people that for lots of reasons haven't worked out. And so, I mean, it's tiring. It's a lot of work, but again, it's that combination of, it's been a grind, but I'm very thankful to be where we are, and I'm trying to keep it going.
I don't know if you realize this, but the very first entrepreneur book anyone ever gave me was from you.
That's cool. I bet I know which one it was.
I mean, which one was it?
Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy. Am I right?
Yes, sir. That is exactly right. And I read that thing from beginning to end. And there's times, and I can even say even recently, where I thought about that book, and I was like, man, it would be. I'm glad I read that book and realized that there'd be ups and downs.
Should I read it? I have it on my shelf, but I haven't read it yet.
It's good.
It's really good. It's an easy read. No excuses, Emilio.
Yeah.
All right. That's next on my list. I have a question, Kevin. Based on something you just said, it triggered a thought for me that used to happen at one of my clients. How do you pick yourself back up when you've kept rehiring the same position and it just feels like a revolving door? And you're like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to find someone to fill this one position, because every month or month and a half, like, it's just somebody new. How do you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple things. Number one, I just don't really see it as optional. Like, okay, I'm going to do it. I've had great employees over the years. I have many great employees now. And so I know that great people are out there. And so maybe it's stubbornness that I have, or persistence, or whatever. But the other side of that coin, and I don't really like to think about this, but some of it is looking in the mirror and saying, okay, how did I fail in this? And it could be failing in a few different ways. It could be failing in my hiring process. Maybe I cut some corners and like, well, they didn't do this thing, or they've got this flaw, but maybe it'll be okay. So maybe I failed in just my process and how I brought that person on. It could be that I failed in how I set expectations or how I trained them. And so it could be how I engaged, how I motivated, or whatever them. And I try to learn something from each employee that doesn't work out. One of the things I've said before is the one common denominator of every employee who ever didn't work out at my business was me, right? And so, yes, people have been dishonest or have, not worked super hard, or what, a bad attitude. Yes. I mean, so it's not like it's all my fault, but like really the one thing that they all had in common was me. Right. So there needs to be some humility in that, some reflection, and just hopefully learning and growing. And I've said many times, well, I won't make that mistake again, but I keep finding new mistakes to make. So that's good.
What big change do you think you've made in hiring? That you said you have a pretty solid team now. What do you think your biggest change was that helped you get to that place?
Oh, well, some of it's just trial and error. I would say there's sort of a settling effect, and really there's nothing magic about the 1 year mark. But what I've found is typically if they get to the 1 year mark, there's a really good chance it's going to work out with them. They understand the business, they understand the culture, they're a part of it, they've shaped that. And it's like they've gotten over some kind of a hump. And it's like, once they get there, there's again, that sort of settling. In that 0 to 1 year mark, that's where most of the turnover is. And it's like either they aren't the right fit, I'm not the right fit for them, whatever. So some of it is just the benefit of time and perspective. I do think, our hiring process, it certainly is not perfect, but it's gotten better, having a little bit more clearly defined roles and just the steps that I go through to vet the candidates, I think has helped me weed out some people. To be honest, I think I probably lose some decent people throughout that process, but I have to be okay with that, right? That, I need to sift and sort and ideally going to find good people on the back end. So I'd be happy to share that process that I go through if that would be helpful to you guys.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what process you're using to find the right talent for your business.
Yeah, and I always tell people in terms of sourcing applicants, there's no silver bullet, right? There's not like this one, you just have to do this one thing and then that's where they'll all come from. So I'm always looking in a lot of different places. LinkedIn is a really good one, finding people that are, in fields that are the same or similar, and connecting with those people. And sometimes I'll just connect and, just asking if they're interested in a call to discuss the opportunity. Indeed has a pretty cool, but I would say fairly little known feature. It's called the resume search. So I think it's $125 a month or something, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to search resumes based on zip code and certain keywords, and then also how recently they've updated it. And so I'm looking for people that are kind of likely in the job market, but haven't necessarily applied with me. And so once you find somebody you like, you can message them and then they have the choice of whether to respond or not. I guess it's a little bit like a dating app or something. Until they respond, you actually don't have their contact information. So you have their name, you have where they worked and all that stuff, but you don't have their contact information. Once they respond, it'll, I'm interested. It'll have their email and their phone number. And then, I'll text them or email them to try to set up a Zoom call. And then I use different just hiring platforms. We have an internal one. It's called, it's not internal, but it's called Career Plug, and it posts to the different job boards. And I just use that as an aggregator. So the first step, typically, if I look through lots of resumes, lots of applicants and things, but if I'm interested, if I have any interest, it'll be to schedule a Zoom interview. I used to do a call, but that's a little tweak that I made. I want to see, are they able to use the technology? Are they engaging? Are they friendly? Is their demeanor positive? Do I kind of click with them? And that's a little bit difficult to tell over the phone, right? So I had one person I did a Zoom interview with, and they were like laying in their bed. And I'm like, I don't, whatever words that are coming out of your mouth, I'm just not really, they're not landing because you're laying on your bed. And there was another guy that was like in shadows, and I'm like, you gotta flip on the light, man. But so we have a conversation. It's pretty casual. I kind of asked them about themselves and some things that stand out about their resume and things. And then I talked to them about the opportunity at our office. And occasionally I'll talk to somebody and it's a no-go. The guy that was shrouded in shadows, like, we're kind of done here. I just kind of, all right, I'm talking to a few people. And
tip number one, don't lay in your bed when interviewing.
At least not with me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys
or keep in the shadows at the same time.
Yeah, come on, man. It's just so it's not that hard. So from there, if it's good, I kind of communicate to them what are the steps in the process, and I just tell them, it's kind of like connecting the dots. When you're a kid, you have a little piece of paper and it has all the dots. I say, the reason I do it this way, you might look at that as, I don't really know what that is, but the more lines you draw on the piece of paper, you start to get a clearer picture. And I say, this is a two-way street, right? So I'm trying to evaluate you as to your skill sets, your personality, the fit for the role in our office, but you should be doing the same with us. And so as we go through this process, the whole goal is to get a clearer picture, to try to increase our odds that this will be a fit. Or if it's not, then let's tap out before we enter into this. So so then I send them an assessment. There's one, it's put together by a former State Farm agent. It's called Can They Sell? To me, it's twofold. Number one, the assessment has like a cognitive, it has some personality, motivation stuff. I think there's a lot of good ones out there, and I don't necessarily think that everybody should use that one. There's probably a lot of different ones, but I want to see, are they even going to do it? I would say 20% of the people that I send the assessment to just never do it. Well, okay, if you're not willing to spend 20 minutes doing an assessment, probably you're not that interested or whatever, right? And then it's just another data point. I see some on that assessment. There's one measurement that's deadline motivation. In other words, are they a hustler? Do they want to get stuff done? And when I see that's like 5 out of 100, it's like, yeah, I don't want to beg you to pick up the phone and call people. I need people that, have a sense of urgency. So sometimes I just weed people out based on that. Usually I'm not going to hire or not hire them just based on the assessment. But if that looks good, then I have them in for an in-person interview. It's a little bit more formal. It's structured. I'll often have my office manager, Patrice, in on that meeting. I like to see how are they going to dress? How's their handshake? Are they looking you in the eye? Are they quick on their feet? Are they asking me questions? And then from there, if I really like them, I do references, and I haven't run across anybody else that does it this way, but I really like it. So I tell them, if I was interviewing John, I'd say, all right, John, I'm going to email you 3 days and times, Tuesday at 3, Wednesday at 10, whatever. You're going to arrange for your references to call me at my office at those days and times. You're going to email me and let me know who's calling and when. And, if for whatever reason one of those times doesn't work, we can do some back and forth with that. But it's a pretty basic task, in my opinion. But again, you'd be amazed at how many people can't follow instructions, they don't do it or whatever. And if they can't do that, it's probably not going to bode super well. So as I mentioned, there's probably some pretty good candidates throughout, in that process that whatever, they just think, oh, this is too much, or this is, unreasonable or whatever. But I've hired a lot of people that way. And I think my hope is it weeds out a lot of the flakes, and they sort of opt out of this whole thing, and it makes it a lot easier for me. It's frustrating. I feel like I waste my time sometimes with certain people, but that's okay. That's part of the deal, is you've got to talk to a lot of people to get 1 or 2 good ones out the back. So that's kind of that process, and hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, you gotta kiss a couple frogs to get the prince. So so this is my second IT company. My first one, we grew as big as 7 or 8 every once in a while. I never had a process. It was always like shooting from the hip type thing. As of this year, starting AM3, I went to a process, which actually I have a couple of things I'll share with you guys that have helped me. First, some sort of test, just like you did. I have them send me a video, and in the video, I asked them 3 questions. What got you into IT? Like, what do you love about it? Tell me the time that you fixed something that you overcame that you didn't know you were going to fix. And I forgot what the 3rd question was. And like you said, are they going to answer the questions? Are they going to make the video and send it to me? How are they going to present themselves in the video? I don't expect anything all out, because just, I'm asking them to record it from their phone maybe, but it just gives me a lot. It also lets me know how they speak. Do they have a strong accent? Do they not? Before we even engage into having the Zoom video. Once I hire them, this is what's worked for me pretty good. At the end of the day, tell me what you learned or what you had issues with in an email, right? Just quick email, nothing too fancy. 2 bullet points, what you learned, 2 bullet points, what you found difficult or have a question about. On Friday, we're going to meet for 30 minutes and we're going to go over it. And then on Friday, we're going to go over anything else that might have been a hurdle or a hiccup that your supervisor told me you had. So what I'm trying to do is, in these first 90 days, any issues, we're trying to fix them week by week by week by week. So it's not like 30 days in and I'm like, man, you're still doing the things from week 1, right? Or oh, I never knew that was happening. So by day 90, we either know this is working or it isn't. And on Friday, on those Friday meetings, I'm like, look, this happened, and I'm not throwing it in your face. I'm just saying we need to fix this if we want to make it, if we want to make this a permanent situation. We kind of work at that. So we do every day the quick email, then Fridays, and then at the end of the month. And I got that from Cindy, John. And then from there, that's been working for me.
Cindy's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed, Kevin, this is customer to provider things. And I think this is one of the reasons why, when I was looking for guests, this is one of the reasons why I brought you on and asked you to come, was I noticed a culture of Kevin Hayward's name's on the door, but he has really good employees that I don't mind talking to because they get the job done. They do what I ask when I have a problem. They're eager to help. And sometimes you don't see that in business. You have the person whose name is on the door. In my case, my face was on the door in my old business. And it took me a while until I hired a particular person that they stopped asking for me. What do you think? What is the ways like that you helped encourage or motivate people to become those types of employees for you?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. First of all, I'm glad you feel that way. That's the intent. It's one thing to achieve success, but it's another thing to sustain it and to continue to build it. And when you have 30 customers or 50 or 100, like I could just do all of that, but you get to the point where there's just no way, right? And so you have to build in some processes. You have to kind of replicate yourself. So, I think empowering them, I think letting them know, hey, you can do this. You have all the same licenses that I do. I think that's one thing. I think it feels good to them to have that responsibility and have that ownership. So like with our customers, my employees and our customers, we divide up our book by alphabet. So A through G is one team member, H through O is another, and then P through Z. And we're probably going to be, because of our size and our growth, we probably are going to split that into 4 and get another person on board. And so they just sort of own that relationship. I think accountability is really big. I think I see a lot of people who do what I do. I'll use the word $5 word, I guess, abdicate. They just say, okay, you do it and I'm out. I'm going to be golfing or whatever. And no shade on people that take time off. I take time off. I think it's very, very important. And I think as a business owner, you should do that and you're entitled to do that. But taking time off is really different than just peacing out and not being engaged. And so, I have really high expectations. I demand a lot. And so, if I hear from a customer, hey, I didn't hear back from this employee, I circle back with them. And it could be that it's a misunderstanding or, maybe the customer, asked for something an hour ago and they're calling back an hour later. It's like, come on, let's be reasonable. But if we missed it, we have a conversation about, hey, what happened? What can we do to kind of avoid that? Because, that's the best thing we got going for us is that responsiveness, that care, that attention, that conscientiousness. So I think me being present, physically present, engaged, involved. I mean, I try really hard to not micromanage. Probably my team at different times would say that I do, but it's that quality control. But at the same time, empowering them and saying, you can do this, you're able to do this. And sometimes customers will ask me something and I'll just say, you know what, I'm going to have Vanessa get back in touch with you and she's going to do a great job for you. And once in a while, a customer acts, like they think I'm, too important for them or I don't have time for them. And sometimes I had a guy this morning kind of barge into my office and he wanted to talk about his bill going up. And that wasn't my favorite thing, but I think being willing from time to time to say, yeah, I'll meet with people. I'm not above that. It's not that I'm not willing to do it. It's just I can't meet with all the people for all of their needs, and that's what the team is for. So a little long-winded there, but hopefully that gets at your.
No, I think that's great, and like I said, I noticed it from my perspective, calling you, and then having somebody else call me back, and when they took care of me, I was like, okay, well. I can just call the office. I don't actually have to call Kevin's cell phone or anything like that. So now I call you. But
you could, right? I mean, it's that balance of like, hey, yeah, I mean, we're friends and I don't give my cell phone to every customer. But like when a customer, asks me, it's not that I'm not willing to, but there's a subtle kind of training of both sides. And even with my team, when a customer will say, oh, I want to talk to Kevin, training them to say, oh, yeah, that's fine. What is it? I might be able to help you with it. And some people will call in and say they really want to talk to me to make a payment. It's like, man, you definitely do not need to talk to me to make a payment. And there are some things that only I can do, but that's a pretty short list, right?
Yeah, exactly. I prefer to keep my texting conversations to more fun things.
Yeah, no, yeah, but again, I don't, if you get into a bad accident, frankly, I want you to call me because we're friends and I want to be able to help you, right? And so it's that, finding that balance. So
Totally. What are there any other additional things you do to encourage or motivate staff?
yeah, I mean, I try to do a lot of things. Every year we do like a Christmas outing. We just did that this last year. We went to a nice dinner. We went to Legends Arcade and played some skee ball and a bunch of different things like that. So we'll do a handful of things throughout the year, little outings. We do a team meeting every Monday. So we did that this morning, and we just, among other things, we go around the table and everybody says something they're thankful for, and we try to engage, that way. We do, Emilio, to your earlier point, we do bi-weekly, every other week, one-on-ones with my team, and they have a few questions. It's a standing, recurring calendar invite, but what's going well for you? What are you struggling with? Is there anything I can do to help you? And then is there anything else that you want me to know? And some of those conversations are very personal and frankly not very business oriented. Some of them are very short, some of them are rather long, but they have that 30-minute time, and it's good. I think that carving out that time and space to just be with them, and a lot of times it doesn't last 30 minutes. Sometimes it'll last 10 minutes, and that's fine too. But just to be with them. I try to do little gestures here and there if I can pay for something for them. I had a team member who had a window that was broken out in her car and it was like duct taped up, and I was like, there's a glass company that we work with all the time, and I went out and took a picture of the car and I texted them. I said, hey, well, how much would it cost to do this? And like $200. I'm like, all right, I'm going to send my employee. I said, just send me the bill and I want to take care of that. So, I don't have opportunities to do stuff like that every day, but as a business owner, I think if you can bless your employees, I do think those things come back, and I'm not keeping score, keeping track. But I just try to do little things here and there to say, hey, I see you. You're not just somebody that, works for me and answers the phone and makes me money. Yes, we have a business to operate here, but I see you as a person, and that's what's gonna last. So
yeah. So I'm gonna show a picture from your business Facebook page. You probably saw. And other than one of my other favorite ones that you do is you always have a new sign. You always change your signs, and they're always catchy and fun. But another observation I noticed is this employee that I used to. She actually was helping me for kind of Michaela. So she's got a fun story. She came to work for you, and then how long did she work for you?
I want to say it was about 2.5 years.
So she worked for you for 2.5 years, and basically you can see former team member Michaela open her own State Farm office in Chehalis. And the reason why I bring that up is what I love about it is it shows that you've got some kind of culture of leadership in your business. And again, you can't grow without having leadership to help manage people when you're not around.
Yeah.
What things, like, we can talk about her, hope she doesn't mind. What things do you feel like your business helped her to get to where she's at, having her own agency?
Yeah, so State Farm has a program called the Agent Aspirant Program. There's nothing profound about the name, but they really do like to hire agent owners from people that have worked for an agent, and we've been pretty successful. And so it's not just working for any agent, but working for an agent that has a track record of doing well. And I think the idea is like, well, if she's been an integral part of an office that's done well, chances are she's going to do pretty well. So yeah, I mean, she was super young when I hired her. She's still pretty young, but she had a real grit and a tenacity. And so she came on board, I think maybe at about the 6-month mark. I said, hey, Michaela, I think you could do what I do. Are you interested in that? And it didn't take too long for her to be like, yeah, I think I am. Her uncle actually owns a State Farm office in Iowa. And so there was a familiarity there. And so from that point, it was that shifted the nature of the relationship a little bit. to, my goal. Again, obviously there's day-to-day tasks that she needs to get done, whether that be, answering the phone or meeting with a customer, canceling a policy, selling a policy. She got to do all that stuff because she's still an employee. But then, my goal, my hat that I'm wearing is more of one of development of, okay, now part of my job is to help you be ready to position yourself for an opportunity when it comes up. And so she did everything I asked. She was in a kind of primarily a sales role initially. And as she continued to grow and develop, I said, okay, well, there's another role that is a little bit more complex within the office. It's probably the closest to what I do. And we're going to have you do that for like a year before you go and open, because you really need to have that part of your background, your acumen up to speed before you open. So she did that. And then it was just really a neat thing that happened. She initially wanted to open her office in Montana or move to Montana. She had lived there. And then she let me know, actually, we're thinking we want to stay around here. And I was kind of thinking about, okay, what would be a good spot for her? And I knew the agent that was in Chehalis, and he was in his 70s. And I said, hey, Gene, feel bad even asking you this question, but I've got this employee. I think she'd do really well in Lewis County. She would wear cowboy boots, and she's just kind of her, that's just her way. I said, what's your game plan? What do you think? How much longer do you think you'll go? He says, well, it's funny you should ask. I just put in my notice with State Farm. I'll be done in a year. And so from there, it was a partnership with me and him with State Farm to say, okay, it's not my decision, but I was able to advocate for her, and she got the opportunity. So it was a neat thing, and with how everything played out. It's not always that neat and tidy, but
yeah.
It was.
Yeah, just another fun. I mean, I Facebook stalk you more than you realize. But another fun.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I guess I would just add too. So Patrice, my office manager, has been with me 8.5 years, and I've had the conversation with her multiple times. I said, Patrice, like, you could do what I do, and she's like, thank you, and I don't really want to, and I'm like, yes, but kind of kidding, not kidding. I want the best for every person, whether that be they're here and they grow and develop, whether that be that they go on and open their own State Farm office, whether that be they want to go and do something else. I really do want the best for each person. But in her case, she just said, I want to be your right-hand person. And I'm like, great, that's great. That's what I would love as well. But I also don't want you to feel shackled in any way that somehow there's a ceiling on what you're able to do. And so again, when we have those conversations, the relationship shifts a little bit. It's less of, we got to get you ready so you can go and do your own thing, to, okay, how can we make this the best opportunity possible for you? And that's, more pay, it's more and different responsibilities. She's been my office manager for years, but we've kind of tweaked what does that mean over the last couple of years, where she's able to do some more training and things like that. So it's kind of tailoring the opportunity to the person, what their skills and abilities are, but also their goals and long-term, desires for what they want out of their career.
Patrice has also been awesome. And I think the other thing that, I just noticed in one of the internal conversations Laura and I have on a regular basis is, if our staff does leave, our goal is to make them better employees or owners or whatever for the next person.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, and I think to that end, it's sort of holding them with an open hand, right? Like, we don't own our employees; they're not ours. So you want to manage them in a way that they want to stay, but you have to give them the freedom that if they may not, And if that's the case, like you said, John, hopefully they're better. Their life is better for knowing you and for having worked with you, and they're more equipped professionally for the next thing.
Yeah.
I bring that up to my number 2 often, like Kevin said. And every time he's like, no, I want to stay here, in the back of my head, I'm like, ooh, I dodged one there. Funny story. My first employee ever, when he wanted to quit, I almost had like a panic attack. I didn't know what to do. Like, I trained him up from like being an intern. Like, he was doing everything. Great kid. I love him. He works at Kaseya now, actually. And he wanted to leave. And I'm like, man, do I offer this kid like a piece of the business? Like, I didn't know what to do. I was just going to like lose my mind. And then I was like, you know what? This happens to everybody. Like, I'm not the first person whose first employee that was doing good wanted to leave. So, just something I had to learn, learning the ropes. To one of your statements, John, when you asked Kevin, what does he do to find the leaders? I think those hoops that he puts people through during the hiring process, that says a lot. A lot, like Kevin said, a lot of people don't want to take those extra quizzes or go the extra mile to pick up the phone and ask the reference, can they please, do something for them at a certain time. So when your employees do that, or when your prospect does that, it says a lot about their character and what they're willing to do to get to that next level, I believe.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Well, this has been a great conversation. I'm going to have to come up with more questions for you. We'll have to do this again. Is there anything else that you can think of that has helped you along your journey that you'd want to share before we part ways?
No, it's been a really good conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and I learned some things too from you guys. I remember before I opened, I was speaking with a mentor who had been doing this a long time, and I asked him what the hardest part of the job was, and he said, "Oh, it's the employees." And I just remember thinking, smug, naive 26-year-old Kevin thinking like, "Oh, well, that's you. It's going to be different for me," But yeah, I mean, it's really challenging. It's really, really challenging. But I think trying to think of the other side of that coin, which is the opportunity really to bless your employees and to make a really profound difference in people's lives. Yes, they're frustrating at times. Yes, you make your hair gray or thin. I've got both of those going on here. But also, man, when this is all said and done, like, I don't think the policies that I sold are going to matter all that much. Yeah, it matters, get fixing somebody's car, their life insurance or whatever. But man, I hope that I've got at least a handful of employees who say, man, I'm so glad that I got to work for Kevin. I'm so glad that he was a mentor, that he was somebody that spoke into my life, and he cared about me, not just as a worker bee, but as a person, and he made a difference for, having hired me. And so, I guess I would just encourage people listening to try to think of it from that perspective, and just the ability to pour into other people, to bless other people, to encourage them, and to, hopefully make a difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end this interview with a quote from your own sign.
Okay.
Your office, and because I think it really fits with some of what we talked about. It's culture that we create within our employees, and that we hope customers see, especially when you have those price raising conversations you have to have with your employees. But here's what you have on your sign. It says, "Quality is remembered long after price is forgotten." And if we can remember that, and we can run our businesses in that way, we're going to have some of the best clients and the best employees we can have. Conveniently, also, if you're in the Olympia, Washington State area, Kevin's phone number is on his sign. And I'm sure he'd love to have a conversation with you about insurance. And so we'll go ahead and put his information in the show notes as well. Kevin, thanks for being here. It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, John, for the invite, and Emilio as well. And really nice to meet you, Emilio.
You too, Kevin.
Okay, pickleball game coming up soon.
Sounds good.
Okay, man. Awesome. We'll see you later.
Okay.
Bye. Well, another good interview. I don't even we're doing really well on guests, and I'm super excited about all the people that we've been able to bring to the table. And
I'm trying to figure out that 40 minutes goes really fast when you're.
Yeah, I know, right? Here we are. 40
conversation
minutes.
is just flowing. Yeah, it goes really quick.
It does. Well, so we have another conversation, not as fun as hiring. We're going to talk a little bit about another data breach and another cybersecurity thing. And I think I want to talk a little bit. Let's talk about lessons before we tell the story. I'm going to do it in reverse, because one of the things that we're going to see in this story is the main cause of this is phishing. And I think that we live in a time when it seems like people are not paying that much attention to how they're training employees when it comes to cybersecurity.
Okay, I thought you were going to go another way, and I was going to say, well, maybe they're not trained. So I like the way you stated it. Good point.
Yeah, right. They're not, the owners aren't putting enough focus into how they're not building a culture of cybersecurity within their business. And they're letting people fall through the cracks. And we know at this point from statistics, 90% of cyber attacks that are successful, they're created by employee mistakes. That's a staggering number that we have to keep in mind. So with that, here's the story. Cooper, mortgage giant Mr. Cooper, had a 14.7 million people. And that's a staggering amount of people that lost personal data. And I think we find, didn't it say it in here? It shows. So they lost information that includes full name, address, phone number, social security number, birth date, bank account number. Yeah. Holy heck.
And that's what sells the best on the dark web, social securities, bank account numbers, especially of those of underage.
Yeah, holy heck, right. So now you've got to keep an eye on these. You have 14.7 million people to keep an eye on the dark web. Keep an eye on their bank accounts. Keep an eye on new credit cards that get opened. This is a staggering statistic. And what it comes down to is an employee made a simple mistake.
What some companies don't know, financial companies, mortgage, car dealerships, places that take in this type of information with social security numbers and bank accounts and deal with money, is that when something like this happens, so what are we saying? Almost 15 million people?
Yeah.
If Mr. Cooper is sued, this company, they have to provide credit monitoring and identity monitoring for 15 million people now. Say that's even at $2 a month per person. Do the math. Talking about a lot of money.
Yeah, I know that I'm getting free, even though I have my own. I'm getting free monitoring from one of the other data breaches that my information was in, and it seems to be that companies are just throwing this out as, okay, well, we're just going to throw this tool at them and hope they feel better about their data breaches and about the fact that their social security numbers and their banking information is potentially out on the dark web at this point.
Yeah,
and I think
one aspect of what's happening.
Yeah. And some of them may have to do it, but it's crazy. You look at just the fact that 14.7 million people. There's the exact number, 14,690. That's a huge amount of people, and it really shows two things. Businesses, or rather cyber attackers, are now, they're really getting good at creating phishing and socially engineered attacks that look very real, and they're able to do enough research about businesses to figure out how to send a phishing attack that is specifically catered to that business. So we can kind of we can somewhat blame, we can point the finger and we can say, well, they didn't do enough training, but we also have to acknowledge that these guys that are doing these attacks are getting better at this job that they have. Well, they're getting better at it.
Job, career, whatever we want to call it. But yes, whatever. And like you said, now it's becoming easier. It's easier to monetize. Hacking as a service, I think, is what someone called it one time. You can just buy a tool, or you can, it's just
those tools are like $30 in some cases. Like a ransomware kit, it's $30 to $50 online. It's nuts. It's nuts. And I guess the point is that we as professionals, us in the cybersecurity world, you as the business owner, we all have to up our game. because the criminals are upping their game. And if we don't up our game, we're going to end up, and maybe it's not going to be 14 million people because you're a small business. But the percentage of your business that it affects is still significant, because sometimes it's harder to pay those out when you're smaller. You may not have the money to recover as easily as one of these larger companies do.
Yeah.
So it definitely shows education and consistent education. I sat in a speech last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, from a lady who specifically owns an cybersecurity education company. And she talked about just the fact that we have to do a good job of not just giving not education that checks a box, which is really common in some business. Okay, we did our cybersecurity training for the year. Now we're good. But education that is recurring, it keeps people engaged, and it's reminding them on a regular basis they need to be diligent.
Yeah, that they're retaining, right? Something retainable that they're consuming, that they're retaining what they're consuming. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where we come in. That's where we help you. So if your business is lacking education and you're in Florida, Pacific Northwest, or anywhere in between the United States, you can see the business names there. But of course, we have all that information on our website, on the Business and Bytes podcast website, to contact us, and we'll have that in the show notes. But do you have anything else before we're gonna maybe have? I don't know if it's a shorter show, but we had a really great interview, and it's just easy to keep going.
Yeah, it's maybe like 9 minutes shorter, but yeah, we can wrap this one up. I think we should definitely have Kevin on again for some stuff in the future. I liked his interview, actually, as well as the other one we did earlier.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah,
we've got more coming. I've got more coming. I've got some coaches talking about culture and hiring as well, and getting some different information. I'm still working on more guests. So here's the thing I would ask from the audience. One, if you're not following our Facebook page, please do so. That would be really big and helpful. Like I said, we're going to be launching podcast episodes out here pretty soon. And then the other thing is, if you know somebody who would be a phenomenal guest for us as we get this podcast started, send us an email or send us a note on Facebook, and we'll work to get them on the show. And we're just looking to add value and help you as the business owner, you as the entrepreneur, grow your business and have the tools to do so.
Yep.
With that being said, thanks for watching, and we hope you have a great new year, and get in the gym, because that's what we do in January.
Yeah. If you're watching this in 2023 or 2024, let's congratulate Mr. John over here for his newborn baby.
Yeah.
And his new daddy role, another hat to wear.
Yes, sir. I'm excited. It's coming. By then, you'll see pictures on Facebook by the time this airs. But it's been a pleasure as usual, Emilio. And we'll be back next week with a new show.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Have a great day.